Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Do Politicians Really Practice What They Preach? In this video, we're going to be looking at what is conservatism. Now, this series is brought to you by our new book, Are All Lives Equal? Why Cost-Benefit Analysis Values Rich Lives More and How Philosophy Can Fix It. Stick around at the end to learn more. Now, conservatism is, at its most basic, a position that is opposed to grand, centrally planned, overarching societal change. It favors instead empirically tested, incremental changes that support existing hierarchies that have evolved over time. The conservative position focuses on the idea that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, conservatism is often strawmanned as resistant to all and any change. A more nuanced view argues that reforms should be gradual and empirically tested. The conservative sees all the benefits of existing structures and argues that these should be preserved, and therefore that reform should be gradual and verified, not centrally directed and sudden. That the fruits of a glorious revolution may not be as sweet as promised, and that the grass may always look greener on the other side, but may not actually be. There's a streak of communitarianism in many types of conservatism as well. The idea is that individuals are shaped by their communities, and that those communities are time-tested means of building a society. For the conservative, the existing hierarchies in these communities should be respected, because they have served those communities well in the past, and removing them may have unintended consequences. For the conservative, everyone has a place in societal hierarchies. They should be free to find that place, but not free to question or undermine the hierarchy itself. Inequality for the conservative is not a bad thing, as people are made happy by feeling like they have a place in the system than being perfectly equal to everyone else. Now, conservatives are opposed to centrally planned policies that promote sweeping changes from above. Instead, they prefer grassroots changes that come from below, with smaller communities testing out changes to determine the consequences before they are enacted at a large scale. They argue that while a top-down approach may have glorious ideals, those often fail to be actualized because there is a lack of appreciation of the practical impacts of those choices. A key theme of conservatism along these lines is the imperfectibility of people. The idea that we cannot create a perfect utopian society, so we should not throw away all the good that we have to try to do so. Rather, we should attempt to build on the success that we have had in making a society and strengthen those institutions that have brought us so far. Unlike liberalism, conservatives don't think that an existing government needs to justify itself. Rather, for conservatives, the burden of proof rests on the reformer to demonstrate that change will bring about sufficient benefits to be justified. The fact that a government or social hierarchy does exist and has provided some level of benefit to its citizens is sufficient justification enough for it to continue to exist, without proof from a reformer. Ironically, similar to liberalism, there is broad disagreement on where conservatives stand with respect to economics. Some make the case that conservatism supports laissez-faire capitalism with limited taxation and regulation to prevent arbitrary limitations on naturally occurring societies, and people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps and find their place in the hierarchy. Others argue that conservatives should support a basic level of social safety net to allow people the freedom to actualize their goals and find their place in society. However, they do all agree that conservatives are opposed to a full socialist revolution in politics. Any conservative economic policies that strengthen the social safety net should be incremental and time-tested. There are a range of objections that have been raised to conservatism by liberals, socialists, and others. One might argue that, as an empirical fact, different levels of social hierarchies are less accessible than conservatives claim. That in many societies, the status of your parents determines your status. That people are not actually able to move out of the caste they were born into. For some societies, this is even written into law. For others, it's merely an empirical fact. Such a concern might give us reason to think that hierarchies where some have ill-gotten gains while others are forced into servitude for no reason than their parents were born to it are immoral, and that conservatism is merely a fool's philosophy designed to keep the poor subservient. A liberal might object that the conservative has inaccurately placed moral status on the society as a whole over an individual, and particularly objecting to the communitarian in this case as well, that societal cohesion does not matter if the individuals are suffering or enslaved. The stability of a community is unimportant if those hierarchies allow individuals with power to exploit those without. That minority groups in a society have rights, even if the traditions of that society are to deny them those rights, and even if getting those rights would upset the social order, because people matter more than societies, at least to the liberal. Progressives might object that radical change is possible and often does lead to positive outcomes. One would only need to look at the world following World War II, where large, centrally planned, classically liberal institutions like the United Nations and the World Bank have worked to preserve peace throughout the world and prevent global wars in the quote-unquote long peace. As bad as the recent conflict in Ukraine has been, it's nothing compared to World War II or previous wars. Or one might argue that the American Revolution and the building of America as a country was a centrally planned radical change that had very positive results. As much as conservatives claim to have empirics on their side, it seems that there are many cases where top-down planning has led to benefits, even if there are also cases where it has led to some costs. Another objection is that such a view is deeply elitist. Of course, those in power would think that the system is working well, because it worked for them. Conservatism is a perfect excuse for them not to worry about the concerns of those below them. It paints an inaccurate picture that we should be satisfied with what we have because nothing better is possible. There must be poverty for some to be rich, so why worry about the poor? At best, such an argument suffers from the problem of bad company, along with arguments for things like slavery. There must be slaves for anyone else to have benefit, etc. Others might object that perfection is possible, or at least a better society is possible. The empirical evidence is that living conditions have improved over time and continue to improve. Why should we think that a world where even more people are happy is impossible? Additionally, the pace of improvement has changed as people have gained more ability to enact systematic change. As governments gained more power to enact systematic change, people's lives have improved faster. Vaccines once took years to create, but now with radical government support of the private sector, several were created in much less time. Systematic change is more effective and more influential than incremental empirically based change. Others still might object that conservatives offer no justification for a government other than it was the one that has stuck around for the longest. It seems that there is a conflation of what is good with what is stable. A strong military dictatorship that tortures and kills dissidents may be very stable, but few would want to live there, and few would say it is preferable or leads to happiness. This points to another objection, that the perceived happiness of conservative societies may be due to bad measurement. Authoritarian societies often lie about how happy their people are, or punish those that say they are unhappy. Along these lines, one might be concerned that this argument is based on circular reasoning. The current government is justified at least in part because it has survived, i.e. the government is justified in being in power because it is in power. It seems that there are many illegitimate reasons that one could have power, even if that power leads to stability or continued power. And it seems we could do more to explain why a government has power than it has power. Some might further object that the only reason that anyone believes that the groups that are in power have done good in the past is the Pollyanna Principle, a psychological principle that leads people to forget bad memories and remember good ones, making the past seem more positive than an uncertain future with a different structure. Finally, one might object to conservatism due to the lack of respect for basic rights and freedoms. Conservatives do not have a place for apostates and those that question existing hierarchies in their world. People from lower classes and castes that need to learn their place and not be given the same rights as those with more power don't have a place in the upper levels of the hierarchy. The oppressed should stay oppressed because society was built on their backs, and letting them stand up will lead to the fall of society. Existing hierarchies are one thing, but should we have a hierarchy where some lives are worth more, where some lives are worth hundreds of times more than others? Economists already do. To learn about this concerning conclusion and how philosophy can fix it, check out our new book, Are All Lives Equal? We have on the website a couple of blogs about the book, as well as some more information. You can even read the first chapter if you're curious. The book is available in paperback right now on Amazon. Check out the link in the description for more. What do you think? Should society focus on individual rights or on communal cohesion? Should we move forward with incremental change or radical change? Should those in power need to justify their power? Or is the fact that they have power enough to justify their right to power? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe, hit that notification bell if you liked this video and you want to see more, and stay tuned for the rest of the videos in this series. Next up, we're going to be looking at the question of, are conservatives really conservative? So do make sure to subscribe if you want to catch that next video. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.